In pre-season testing, there were several clear takeaways that fans, drivers and teams all seemed to agree on. McLaren looked incredibly strong and confident with their car, showing signs that they might be the team to beat in the early part of the 2025 Formula One season. On the opposite end, Racing Bulls appeared to be struggling, placing them right at the back of the grid based on their testing performances. But then we have the intriguing situation with Ferrari. It's not so easy to tell exactly where Ferrari stands at this point in time. Are they contenders, or are they still trying to get a handle on their new package? That's the million-dollar question, and this script aims to explore that in detail by walking through Ferrari's entire testing program from day 1 to day 3, using information from driver interviews, team principals, telemetry, and race simulations. To start, we need to understand what Ferrari's primary objective was during these 3 days of testing. It's important to recognize that the SF-25 is a very different car compared to its predecessor. Ferrari has moved from a pushrod front suspension to a pull-rod system, which is a significant shift, especially this late in the regulation cycle. This means the car has a completely new mechanical platform. The team needs to understand how this platform behaves before they can even begin to chase performance. That's why Ferrari's testing plan wasn't about setting the fastest laps. Instead, it was about collecting data, understanding how the car responds to changes, and trying out a wide range of setup configurations. This information comes from reliable sources, including well-connected motorsport journalists who have strong links within Ferrari. Adding further support to the theory that Ferrari wasn't pushing for lap time is the aerodynamic setup they chose for testing in Bahrain. The rear wing Ferrari ran wasn't the high downforce version you might expect for that circuit. Instead, it was a medium downforce configuration. In contrast, other teams like McLaren started with similar setups, but moved toward higher downforce as the test progressed. Ferrari stayed with the medium setup, which suggests they were more focused on consistency and data collection rather than testing outright performance. This approach was also reflected in the comments from Lewis Hamilton. In interviews during the test, Hamilton explained that he was not making any setup changes on day 1. He simply followed the test plan and completed the scheduled runs. It wasn't until the second day that he began to interact more with his engineer and start exploring how the car felt in different configurations. This tells us that Ferrari's aim on the first day was purely about understanding the new car and not about trying to go fast. As for how the car behaved, the difference between day 1 and day 2 was noticeable. On the first day, Ferrari's SF-25 was running with a setup that led to a lot of understeer. Onboard showed that the drivers were having trouble getting the car to turn into corners. The steering response was slow, and the car looked unwilling to rotate. Their fastest lap on this day was a 1:31, although the exact fuel load isn't known. But what we do know is that by the second day, Ferrari made a significant shift in setup. The car had transitioned from understeer to oversteer, which is a drastic change and a sign that Ferrari had taken the data from day 1, analyzed it overnight, and applied it to good effect. The result was a much more responsive car on day 2. In Hamilton's hands, the SF-25 turned in well, looked planted, and allowed him to push with more confidence. His lap time dropped to the low 1:29s, and this came during the morning session, which usually isn't the fastest time of the day due to lower grip levels. This indicates that the car was not only better to drive, but also had more speed in it once the setup started to come together. These flashes of performance weren't the focus, but they were encouraging signs. Then came one of the most informative parts of the test, Charles Leclerc's race simulation run on the second day. During the evening session, Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren all ran race simulations at the same time, providing a rare and valuable direct comparison. Over the course of the simulation, Ferrari was about 0.4 of a second slower per lap than McLaren. On the surface, that might sound disappointing, but it's important to keep in mind the context. McLaren has been running a pull-rod front suspension for 2 or 3 years now. They know how to set up their car and can extract performance quickly. Ferrari, on the other hand, was still learning about their car. They were also reportedly running a heavier fuel load during the simulation. There are even rumors, though not confirmed, that other teams believe Ferrari might be sandbagging holding back performance on purpose. While that can't be proven, it adds another layer of intrigue. What we do know is that even with a heavier car and a potentially less than optimized setup, Ferrari was only a few tenths behind McLaren. That's a good sign. So, where does all of this leave Ferrari in the pecking order heading into Melbourne? It's hard to say for certain, but a few conclusions can be drawn. First, Ferrari is definitely in the top 4 teams. Their testing program wasn't about being the quickest, but about learning the new car, and even in that mode they showed competitive pace. Second, based on the car's performance on the second day and the reports that they were running heavier fuel loads, there's a strong case to be made that Ferrari could be the second quickest team behind McLaren. That would place them slightly ahead of Mercedes. However, there's a second scenario that needs to be considered. If Ferrari can't find the right setup window consistently, they could fall to third behind both McLaren and Mercedes. The margin between the top 3 teams appears to be very small, and track characteristics will likely play a big role in determining who has the upper hand each weekend. In Melbourne, with its combination of slow and medium-speed corners, Ferrari might have a slight advantage, but if they miss the setup window, they could struggle. The next 2 weeks are crucial for Ferrari. They need to go through all the data from testing, find the most valuable insights, and develop a setup strategy that will allow them to hit the ground running in Australia. Their new mechanical platform has a lot of potential, but unlocking it will take time and precision. The good news is that they made visible progress between day 1 and day 2 of testing, which is a strong indicator that the team is moving in the right direction. In summary, Ferrari's pre-season testing was not about showing off their speed. It was about learning a completely new car and collecting as much data as possible. The SF-25 showed promising signs once the team started to get a handle on the setup. The race simulation results were encouraging, even if they weren't the fastest. And there are hints, both from within the team and from rivals, that Ferrari might be holding back some of their true pace. Whether that's true or not, we'll begin to see in Melbourne. For now, Ferrari fans can be cautiously optimistic. The team has built a radically new car and is taking the right steps to understand it. If they continue on this path, they could be real contenders in the 2025 season.